planned press conference, but we figured that because of what you've heard through the media over the new year, I figured it's important for me to have a conversation with the local community media and clear up the air so everyone knows exactly what happened on my personal visit to Sri Lanka and India. I decided to go take a trip. It was originally supposed to be a 3-week vacation, which in India, and then I decided that since I left as a child, I had not gone back to Sri Lanka, and because of the post-war situation and my security of being a member of Parliament and a Canadian, I knew that I had the privilege and a little bit more safety, and so I decided that it was safe for me to go to Sri Lanka, and I really wanted to see my homeland, see the country that I was born in with my own 2 eyes, and see my mom's house, my grandfather's house. My mom had a shop, and I remember being shot at in this shop when I was a child. And I wanted to go see these things again with my own 2 eyes as an adult. And that was the reason for this trip. And during the trip, as you've probably now heard, there was a lot of political intimidation on part of the Sri Lanka government. There was a lot of intelligence agents and immigration agents who were following me throughout the entire trip, and also subjected me to a field interrogation by the immigration division while I was at an ice factory. My friend who was with me, his uncle owns that ice mill, and I went to go change at that ice mill and was subjected to a field interrogation by 3 immigration officers. What goes to show from this little experience that I had is that even though myself being a Canadian, being a Canadian member of Parliament, I was subjected to this level of scrutiny and intimidation, political intimidation is what I would call it, by the Sri Lankan government. It just goes to show that what I experienced was probably only the tip of the iceberg. Very little bit of what the people who live there on that island live and experience on a day-to-day basis, day in and day out. Because I know that after I had visited with my aunt, the intelligence agents had, when I left my aunt's house, they had gone to my aunt and interrogated everybody that was there, and to find out who I am, why I was there, and am I really her sister's daughter. Same thing happened to my uncle, same thing happened to all of the people at my grandfather's house that I went to visit on my father's side. Everybody who came into contact with me after I left were interrogated by some government officials. So my accidental experience has truly strengthened my resolve to continue to fight for human rights, not only in Sri Lanka, but to fight for the defense of human rights all around the world, and continue to be a strong advocate for the hundreds of thousands of people who are living in situations where they're oppressed and don't have the opportunity to speak for themselves. It's really strengthened my resolve to be a strong voice, one of the strong voices for the many voiceless people around the world.
So I think we can take some questions. If you have a question, just raise your hand and maybe just mention which outlet you're here on behalf of. Yeah.
Could you please explain about your impression which you had when you were visiting the northern province, how the living condition of the Tamil people and their mental condition and everything? Could you please?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't do any interviews or per se of people. I visited with people I knew, but the only place where I went to see people I didn't necessarily know was when I went to the Valihamam North IDP camp. This is the internally displaced people camp. In Jaffna, everywhere north and east of my mom's town of Mavatapuram, everywhere beyond that is now considered part of the military's high security zone, and all of the people who lived in that area, who own property in that area, have had their lands taken away from them, have been told that they're not allowed to live in their own home, and they're living in these IDP camp. And this IDP camp has been there for 24 years. These people have been living in sheet metal houses for 24 years, and it's absolute poverty is what people are living in. Conditions where they were actually very happy that it's a situation of a drought when I went. I went in the rainy season and people were happy that they were having a drought. The farmers are not happy, but the people living in these tin houses were very happy because they said that if the rain starts, then you can't even stay anywhere. Whether you're inside the house or outside the house, it's all the same because the roofs are all very leaky, and they literally run around catching water with buckets in their houses. I remember vividly these two elderly women who showed me around the IDP camp, and they showed me around the whole place, and then at the end, or around the end of my visit, they pulled me aside and said, you know, yesterday and today we haven't been able to put fire in our stove because I have no rice to cook. We haven't been able to eat for 2 days. Can you help me? Can you help us? And that's when it really hit me that even though people are living in a situation where their homes have been taken away from them, where their land has been taken away from them, and they're living in these internally displaced camps for 24 years, they're still living in a situation where they're not being taken care of. If they had their land, they could grow their own vegetables. But they don't have their land, and they're living in these extremely close quarters. I remember going inside one of these old women's living quarters, and the roof was this high. So she was an old woman who had to crouch get into her roof, and the floor was all cracked, and it was literally a mud floor. And people shouldn't have to live in these conditions, especially when they had their own homes and their land and their homes were taken away from them. Mental health, I believe, I'm not a mental health professional, but from what I could see, there's a lot of sad, depressed people. Mental health, I believe mental health is going to become, or is a very serious issue in that community. There's one woman I spoke with who had moved into the IDP camp as a young girl. She had gotten married and had had a child, and her daughter had just gotten married, and all this while living in an internally displaced camp. So people are making their lives continue, but there's no real opportunity for jobs, no real home other than the IDP camps, and they're moving forward with hope that there will be an opportunity for them to go back to their homes, or that they will be able to move out of the IDP camps.
Yeah, if you could
I
just
understand.
If you could just mention the name of your outlet and then which media organization you represent.
I am not a media, I just in the public.
Okay.
I understand from the newspaper here that you have visited Mannar. There you met a Catholic clergy who has shown some reports about these people who are missing from after the war in 2009. Those things you are taken up, and you said you will take it up with the Canadian government. So I told it, that's the report came in paper, Tamil paper, here, Canada. At the same time, madam, I just want to know, what are the places you have visited in Jaffna Peninsula, important places, so many places where the people are living, controlled by army as well as without army, so many places. How are they living conditions, all these things?
Most
of the report. Sorry, madam.
Thank you. Most of the areas that I did visit had extremely high military presence. If I am correct, I believe that almost all of the northern area is highly militarized. All along the road, even going from Negumbo up to Jaffna along the road, which is the A9, I believe. The A9 road that goes from the airport up to Jaffna. There's multiple military checkpoints, where you have to stop and register, others where you are just flagged down, they look inside your vehicle and then let you pass. But everywhere I went was extremely highly militarized. And also, everywhere I went, I noticed that there are more and more Army camps or Army bases that are being built or strengthened along the roadside in the communities where villages are, and the Army bases are being strengthened all across the area that I went. I did stop by in Klinochi on my way north from the airport because we needed a break spot. We went into, you're correct, I did go into Mannar. I had an opportunity to visit the bishop, and I believe you were talking about my visit to the church where Father Sebamale is. Yeah, the community was having their Christmas festival that day, so I went by the church there to see some of the youth who were practicing for their Christmas event. While I was looking around at the church and what was left of the church, because they were rebuilding the church, Father Sebamale did mention to me that he had taken on the initiative with an organization of women mostly, who are, the association is called the Association of Missing People, a Family of Missing People, and I had a chance to meet with the president of that association, who was a mother who had lost her son when he was 16 years old, and hasn't seen him since. And you're right, there's about 2,000 names that they have registered of missing people who, it's mostly mothers who have registered their missing children. And some mothers have seen their children alive under the control of the Army, but other times they're just missing, and after the control, after they've seen them alive, they've gone disappearing and haven't been able to identify them. I did have a chance to see the church that the Bishop Rajapu in Mannar has, and his sanctuary. Where else did I go? I did go to my mother's town of Mavatapuram and saw a lot of the memorable spots, I guess, like the Mavatapuram Kandasamy Koil, which is very special to my family, and I had a chance to go to Madane in Perpiture, my grandfather's town, my father's town, and had a chance to also meet many of my family members for the first time, because I left when I was 5 years old, and I remember my aunt, my mother's sister, is the only family member who I actually knew, and so it gave me an opportunity to really go back and connect with my family and connect with my roots. And I had some memories of what Sri Lanka was for me as a 5-year-old child, and this trip was an opportunity for me to test my memory, and I was very surprised as to how much I remembered of my actual mother's house, my grandfather's house, and my mom had a shop, a tailoring shop, and in the back of the shop she had a little living quarters, and this living quarters is where I remember being shot at by Army when I was 5 years old, and my memory was really good. The only thing, I thought it was a circular space, but it's really a rectangular space, but other than that I remembered the space very well, and it goes to show that children who deal with trauma really have a severe impact, and no child should have to live in situations of war. No child should have to live in situations of oppression, and generations of children have had to deal with that on the island of Sri Lanka, and I think this trip has helped me to learn that